Okay, so you want to own a Subway franchise. Lowest entry cost in fast food, a name everyone already knows. You figure you'll grab a decent corner, build a loyal local customer base, and own that territory. Here's the problem. There is no territory. Not a small one, not a shrinking one, none. Your franchise agreement does not give you any protected area at all. And the company explicitly reserves the right to open another Subway right next to you. Not as a rare exception, as a written standard policy. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how this system works, why it happened, and why the cheapest franchise fee in fast food can end up being one of the most expensive decisions in fast food. Let's start with the actual numbers, because the entry point really is low. The Subway franchise fee itself is just $15,000. Total initial investment, per the official disclosure documents, ranges from around $200,000 to $537,000. Independent analysts estimate the realistic all-in cost, once you include working capital shortfalls and remodel reserves, closer to $375,000 to $715,000. Still, compared to many other major fast food brands, that's a genuinely accessible entry point. Now, the ongoing fees, because this is where Subway stands apart. Royalty runs 8% of your gross weekly sales. The advertising fund takes another 4.5%. Combined, that's 12.5% of everything you make, before rent, before ingredients, before a single employee is paid. That combined fee burden is among the highest in the entire quick service restaurant industry. You are paying premium fees for a brand that offers you almost no exclusivity in return. Here's the mechanism in plain terms. Most major franchises define a protected territory in the agreement, a radius, a population count, something that limits how close a competing location can open. Subway's franchise disclosure document explicitly states that the company and its affiliates retain unlimited rights to compete with you. That's not a loophole. That's not fine print someone missed. That is the stated policy. It's worth understanding why this matters more today than it used to. Subway was recently acquired by a large private equity firm in a deal reportedly worth around $9.6 billion, financed in part through billions of dollars in new debt placed on the company. That kind of ownership structure tends to prioritize total system revenue and purchasing volume over the profitability of any single franchisee's location. Understanding who actually benefits from more locations opening helps explain why this territory policy hasn't changed. Here's a real example that made this painfully visible to the public. A television show once pointed out that the studio where it films has 10 separate Subway locations within a single-mile radius, 10 within walking distance of each other. That's not an isolated anomaly. It's a visible symptom of exactly how the system is designed to work. So why would a company deliberately allow this? Here's the part that actually explains the whole system. Subway's revenue from royalties has been declining, down roughly 10% over the past 2 years, as the total store count shrinks. But the company generates significant revenue from vendor rebates tied to the products franchisees are required to purchase. More locations, even cannibalizing ones, can mean more total purchasing volume flowing through Subway's approved supply chain, even if any individual location's sales suffer. In other words, a new store opening 2 blocks from yours might be a loss for you, while still being a net gain for the franchisor's overall economics. Your interests and the franchisor's interests are not automatically aligned here, the way they typically are in a franchise with real territorial protection. Compare this to a franchise like Chick-fil-A or Jersey Mike's, where site selection is tightly controlled by the corporate office, specifically to protect existing operators from this kind of internal competition. Subway made a deliberate structural choice to prioritize flexibility for the brand over that kind of protection for its franchisees. Let's talk about what this actually does to a location's numbers. Average unit volume across a Subway system sits around $490,000 to $500,000 a year. That's 50 to 65% below comparable competitors, like Jersey Mike's or Jimmy John's. Realistic owner earnings after costs typically land in the $52,000 to $66,000 range annually. On an investment that can run past $500,000, that means a typical payback period of 8 to 15 years. Now add a new competing location 2 blocks away, drawing from the exact same lunch crowd you were counting on. Your sales don't have to collapse to hurt you. Even a modest 10 to 15% revenue decline on a business already running thin single-digit margins after royalties can be the difference between a slow payback and never actually reaching one. This isn't hypothetical, it's documented in the numbers. There are currently more than 80 active litigation cases, listed in Subway's own disclosure documents, a notably high figure that signals ongoing conflict between the company and its operators. Several of those cases involve multi-unit operators who built substantial businesses over years, only to see individual locations become unviable as new stores open nearby. Some have ended in bankruptcy filings, with courts ordering the closure or sale of restaurants, after operators could no longer service their debt or meet payroll obligations. The system has also been shrinking overall. 2025 saw a net loss of 729 locations in the United States, the steepest decline since 2021, part of a cumulative loss of around 3,000 locations since the system's peak. None of this means every Subway franchise fails. Plenty of operators do fine, particularly in areas with genuinely limited competition nearby. But the risk profile is structurally different from a franchise with real territorial protection, and it's a risk you're taking on, specifically because the franchisor chose not to close that door. Let's put some real numbers to a single location start to finish. Say you open a Subway for $400,000 total investment. In a stable first year, with no new nearby competition, revenue lands around $490,000, matching the system average. After food costs near 30%, labor near 25%, and combined royalty and ad fees at 12.5%. Remaining overhead typically leaves an owner earnings figure, around $55,000 to $60,000 for the year. Genuinely livable, if unspectacular, for the investment and hours involved. Now, the realistic scenario, because this is the part unique to Subway's model. A second Subway opens 8 minutes away, run by a different local operator entirely. Your lunch rush splits between both locations. Revenue drops to around $420,000. Your fixed costs, rent, insurance, base staffing, do not shrink to match the lighter traffic. Owner earnings for that year can fall to $25,000 to $35,000, nearly half of the prior year, on a business you built for over $400,000, purely because of a decision you had no legal power to prevent or even be consulted on. If you're seriously considering this franchise, there's one piece of due diligence that matters more than almost anything else in the disclosure documents. Before signing anything, map every existing Subway location within a 1-mile radius of your target site. If there are already 3 or more, you're entering a market that's already showing signs of heavy internal competition. And that pattern tends to continue, not stabilize. So here's the honest read on this specific franchise. The low entry fee is real. The brand recognition is real. But you are not buying anything resembling exclusive access to a market. You are buying the right to compete indefinitely against other locations of your own brand with no contractual limit on how close they can open. If you're going in assuming a familiar name equals a protected customer base, that assumption simply isn't supported by the agreement you'd be signing. If you understand exactly what you're not getting, and you've mapped every existing location within a mile before committing, this can still be a reasonable, low-cost entry into franchise ownership. Just go in knowing the map can change at any time, and you won't be the one holding the pen. The $15,000 franchise fee was never really the price of admission. The real price is accepting that your success depends partly on decisions made by a company, whose incentives don't always point in the same direction as yours.